Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to be going over 100 SAT practice problems. If you want to raise your score and you want a higher math SAT score, make sure that you watch this entire video, try the questions before I try them, pause the video, and try the questions on your own, and you will definitely increase your score. So now let's get started. Number 1, if x minus 1 divided by 3 equals k, and k equals 3, what is the value of x? First, we need to plug in what k equals to into k in the first equation. So we'll have x minus 1 over 3 equals k, which we know is 3. Our objective here is to get x by itself. Our first step is to multiply by 3 on both sides. On the left, the 3's cancel and we have x minus 1. On the right, 3 times 3 will be 9. The last step to get x by itself would be to add 1 on both sides, and we'll get that x equals 10, or answer choice D. Number 3, on Saturday afternoon, Armand sent M text messages each hour for 5 hours, and Tyrone sent P text messages each hour for 4 hours. Which of the following represents the total number of messages sent by Armand and Tyrone on Saturday afternoon? It says that Armand sent M text messages each hour for 5 hours. To figure out how many text messages Armand sent, we're going to multiply the number of messages per hour by the number of hours that he sent them for. We're going to do the same thing with Tyrone. Tyrone sent P text messages each hour for 4 hours. We multiply these two values to give us how many text messages Tyrone sent in total. And to find between the two of them how many text messages they sent together, we're going to add these two values together. And finally, the answer is 5m plus 4p, which will be answer choice C. Number 2, for I equals square root of negative 1, what is the sum of 7 and 3i plus negative 8 plus 9i? When we have a plus sign in between two sets of parentheses, we can drop the parentheses. So we'll have 7 plus 3i minus 8 plus 9i. Here we're going to combine like terms. 3i plus 9i is 12i. 7 minus 8 is negative 1. And the answer will be negative 1 plus 12i, which will be answer choice A. Number 4, Kathy is a repair technician for a phone company. Each week she receives a batch of phones that need repair. The number of phones that she has left to fix at the end of the day can be estimated by the equation P equals 108 minus 23 times D, where P is the number of phones left and D is the number of days she has worked this week. What is the meaning of the value 108 in the equation? Whenever we have an equation that looks like this, we need to think of the equation y equals mx plus b. We have the value that does not have the variable next to it. This is our starting amount. This is how we start, or initial. The m is our slope, and this is how we change. So when we relate this to the equation that they gave us, P equals 108 minus 23D, we can switch these two values to make it look more like our slope-intercept form, which would be negative 23D plus 108. It's evident that 108 is in the same position as our B, which represents the starting amount. So since P represents the number of phones left, it's likely that we start with 108 phones. Now let's read the answer choices. Kathy will complete the repairs within 108 days. No, that can't be it because the number of days is represented by variable D. So it will not be A. Kathy starts each week with 108 phones to fix. It might be this one, the keyword starts, makes us think that this could be the answer. C, Kathy repairs phones at a rate of 108 per hour. That can't be it. We know that this is our initial amount. Can't be C. D, Kathy repairs phones at a rate of 108 per day. If it was per day or per hour, then 108 would have a variable next to it. Since it doesn't, we know this is our starting or initial amount, and that'll be answer choice B. Number 5, x squared times y minus 3y squared plus 5xy squared minus negative x squared y plus 3 times x times y squared minus 3y squared. Our first step in order to simplify this expression is to distribute the negative to the parentheses on the right. We'll have x squared y minus 3y squared plus 5xy squared plus x squared y minus 3xy squared plus 3y squared. X squared y goes with x squared y. When we combine these two, we're going to get 2x squared y. We have minus 3y squared plus 3y squared. So those two are going to cancel and going to give us 0. And then we have positive xy squared minus 3y squared, which will be plus 2y squared. So our answer is 2x squared y plus 2xy squared, which would be answer choice C. For number 7, we have m equals this mess times p. The formula above gives the monthly payment m needed to pay off a loan of p dollars at our rate annual interest over n months. Which of the following gives p in terms of m, r, and n? If you notice in the question we have m equals all of this times p, and in the answer choices we have p equals all of this times m. Whenever we have, let's say we have m equals some fraction times p, in order to get p by itself, we have to multiply by the reciprocal. So we'll multiply both the left side and the right side by 4 over 5. On the left side, we'll have 4 over 5 times m. And on the right side, the 4 over 5, we need to multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to flip these two blue numbers. So instead of 4 over 5, we're going to multiply by 5 over 4 on both sides. On the right side, we'll have 5 over 4 times m. And on the right side, the 4 over 5 and 5 over 4 are going to cancel, and we're left with just p. Essentially, what we're doing is we're flipping the fraction in front of p and multiplying it over to the other side. So all we need to do is flip this fraction and move it over to multiply with m. So if we look at the answer choices, we're looking for what's on the bottom on top, what's on the top on the bottom, and times m. And as we can see, when we look at answer choice B, we have 1 plus r over 1200 to the power of n minus 1 over r over 1200 times 1 plus r over 1200 to the n power times m. All we're doing is we're flipping the fraction in front of p. Six, a pediatrician used the model above to estimate the height h of a boy in inches in terms of the boy's age a in years between the age of 2 and 5. Based on the model, what is the estimated increase in inches of a boy's height each year? So when we look at this model, we have h equals 3 times a plus 28.6. And they're asking us what is the number that represents how much the boy's height will increase each year. If I go back to my explanation a few questions ago, this is a y equals mx plus b question. B is our starting amount. So this means that 28.6 is how tall the boy is initially. Then the number in front of our variable 3 represents how much the boy's height increases each year. A represents the number of years. So it's evident that 3 is by how much the boy increases each year, which will be A. 8, we have A over B equals 2. What is the value of 4B over A? We have A over B equals 2 over 1, and we're looking for 4B over A. We need to think about how can we turn this A over B into 4B over A. The first thing we can do is take the reciprocal of each side. If we flip both sides, we'll get B over A equals 1 over 2. Now, we're not looking for B over A, we're looking for 4B over A. So all we have to do is multiply each side by 4. And then we'll get that 4B over A equals half times 4, which is 2. So the answer for number 8 is 2. Number 11. In the equations above, B and C represent the price per pound in dollars of beef and chicken, respectively, X weeks after July 1st during last summer. What was the price per pound of beef when it was equal to the price per pound of chicken? So we have this equation that represents the price per pound of beef and C, the price per pound of chicken. We want to find the value X, the number of weeks it took for both of these values to be equal. So we'll have 2.35 plus 0.25x equals 1.75 plus 0.4x. We need to combine like terms. We can combine the x's together. We move over this positive 0.25x over to the other side by subtracting it. Minus 0.25x. We'll have 2.35 equals 1.75 plus 0.4x minus 0.25x is 0.15x. Then we can combine the two numbers together by subtracting 1.75 on each side. On the left side, 2.35 minus 1.75 will be 0.25 plus 35, 6, equals 0.15x. Finally, to get x by itself, we divide by 0.15 on each side. And finally, 0.6 divided by 0.15 will give us that x equals 4. Notice 4 is not one of our answer choices because they're not asking after how many weeks are the two prices equal. They're asking what is the price. At this point, all we have to do is plug in x to either equation. We can plug it into the top. 2.35 plus 0.25 times 4. 0.25 times 4 is going to be 1. And 2.35 plus 1 will be 3.35. And this will be our answer. This will be the cost when the price of beef and chicken are the same. So answer choice D. For number 9, we have a system of equations. 3x plus 4y equals negative 23. And 2y minus x equals negative 19. Our objective here first is to get one of the variables by itself. And I usually like to get the variable isolated that does not have a coefficient, which is here negative x. If we add x over to the other side, we'll get that 2y equals x minus 19. And to get x by itself, we can add the 19 over to the other side, and we'll get 2y plus 19 equals x. Now that we have an equation for x, we can plug in what x equals into the other equation. So instead of 3 times x, x is 2y plus 19. So we'll have 3 times 2y plus 19 plus 4y equals negative 23. We can distribute the 3. 3 times 2y is 6y plus 3 times 19 is 57 plus 4y equals negative 23. We can combine the 6y and 4y. This will give us 10y plus 57 equals negative 23. If we subtract 57 on both sides, we'll get that 10y equals negative 80. And finally, the last step would be to divide by 10 on each side, and we'll get that y equals negative 8. Sometimes system of equations questions will ask you for the x value. In that case, you can just plug in our y here and figure out what x is. But immediately we find that y equals negative 8, and there's only one answer choice that has a y value of negative 8, and that'll be answer choice B. Number 12. A line in the xy plane passes through the origin and has a slope of 1 over 7. Which of the following points lies on the line? So it says the line passes through the origin, which is at 0, 0, and has a slope of 1 over 7. Remember, when we have a slope, the slope is always going to be the rise over the run. This means that we're going to go up 1 to the right 7. So first, we'll go up 1 to the right 7. This point right here will be 7, 1. And if we look at our answer choices, we do not have 7, 1. We have 1, 7, which is not 7, 1. So we can apply the slope one more time for a point all the way over here. The y value will be 2 because we're going up 1 more. And the x value will be 14. And the coordinate for this point will be 2, 14. Or, other way around, 14, 2. The x value comes first, then the y value comes second, and the answer will be answer choice D. Number 10. G of x equals a of x squared plus 24. For the function g defined above, a is a constant and g of 4 equals 8. What is the value of g of negative 4? So first they tell us that g of x equals a times x squared plus 24, and that g of 4 equals 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug in 4 for x, and we're going to set the whole thing equal to 8. If we plug in 4 for x, this will be a times 4 squared plus 24. 4 squared is 16. This will be 16 times a plus 24 equals 8. We can subtract 24 on both sides to get 16a equals negative 16. And here, in order to get a by itself, we can divide both sides by 16. And we get that a equals negative 1. Notice negative 1 is one of the answer choices, but the question is not asking for what a is. The question is asking for g of negative 4. So now that we know that a is negative 1, we can rewrite the equation as g of x equals negative x squared plus 24. And when we plug in negative 4, we're going to get negative 4 squared plus 24. Negative 4 squared is going to be positive 16, and we still have this negative on the outside, so we'll get negative 16 plus 24. Negative 16 plus 24, which will be positive 8, or answer choice A. For number 13, we have x is greater than 3. Which of the following is equivalent to this fraction that we have here? Our first step is to get the same denominator on the bottom. So we'll have 1 over, and in order to get both of these fractions to have the same denominator, we need to multiply the left fraction by x plus 3 on the top and on the bottom. And for the fraction on the right, we have to multiply top and bottom by x plus 2. That'll give us a common denominator of x plus 3 times x plus 2. On top, we're going to have x plus 3 plus x plus 2. Next, we're going to have 1 over. We can combine like terms. X plus x is 2x. 3 plus 2 is 5 over x plus 3 times x plus 2. When we have a fraction over a fraction, we can multiply by the reciprocal. So we have a fraction on top, a fraction on the bottom. This will be 1 over 1. This is the fraction on top, divided by the fraction on the bottom, which will be 2x plus 5 over x squared plus 5x plus 6. And to divide fractions, we keep the first fraction the same, we change the division to multiplication, and we flip the last fraction. And then when we multiply this fraction by 1, we will just get this fraction, which is going to be the answer. For number 15, if ax plus 2 times bx plus 7 equals 15x squared plus cx plus 14, what is the value of x? And a plus b equals 8. What are two possible values for c? So the first thing we're going to do is FOIL these two binomials together. Ax times bx is going to be abx squared. Ax times 7 is going to be 7ax. 2 times bx is going to be 2bx. And 2 times 7 is going to be 14. If we factor out an x in the two middle terms, we'll get 7a plus 2b. All of this times x plus 14. Now we can compare this to what this expression is equal to, which is 15x squared plus cx plus 14. So we have that a plus b equals 8. And if we look at the coefficient of x squared, we have a times b is going to equal the coefficient of x squared, which will be 15. So what two numbers can I add to make 8 and multiply to make 15? This will be 3 and 5. So either a is 3 and b is 5, or b is 3 and a is 5. So we're going to plug these two values in for this middle term, since we're looking for c, and c is the coefficient of x. So we know that 7a plus 2b equals c, and we're looking for the possible values of c. First we'll plug in 3 and 5. 7 times 3 is 21. 2 times 5 is 10. 21 plus 10 is 31. So one possible value of c is 31. And if we look at our answer choices, the only one with 31 is D. Number 14. If 3x minus y equals 12, what is the value of 8 to the power of x divided by 2 to the power of y? So first, they give us this equation, but if you see the answer choices, none of them are asking for x or y, and the question is asking for what is the value of 8 to the power of x divided by 2 to the power of y. So we're going to try to simplify this as much as possible. 8 to the power of x over 2 to the power of y. We can turn this 8 into 2 cubed to the power of x over 2 to the power of y. When you have an exponent to an exponent, those exponents multiply together. So this will become 2 to the power of 3x over 2 to the power of y. When you have two terms that have the same base that are dividing, the exponents you can set up as subtraction. So 2 to the power of 3x divided by 2 to the power of y is the same as 2 to the power of 3x minus y. This is where the equation in the beginning comes into play now. They tell us that 3x minus y equals 12. So instead of 2 to the power of 3x minus y, it's going to be 2 to the power of 12. Or answer choice A. Number 16. If t is greater than 0 and t squared minus 4 equals 0, what is the value of t? So we're given this equation that we can solve. First, we need to add 4 to both sides. We'll have t squared equals 4. And then in order to get t by itself, we can take the square root of both sides. The square root of t is t. The square root of 4 is going to be plus or minus 2. Now you have to go back to the question and see that it says t is greater than 0. So between 2 and negative 2, the only one greater than 0 is positive 2, which is going to be our answer. Number 18, we have x plus y equals negative 9 and x plus 2y equals negative 25. Since they're asking what is x, we first need to get y by itself in this first equation by subtracting x on both sides. So we'll have that y equals negative x minus 9. Now that we have y equals negative x minus 9, we can plug it back in to y in the other equation. So for the other equation, we'll have x plus 2 times, instead of y, we're going to plug in what y is equal to, negative x minus 9 equals negative 25. We can distribute the 2, and we'll have x minus 2x minus 18 equals negative 25. X minus 2x is going to be negative x minus 18 equals negative 25. And then we can add 18 on both sides, and we'll get negative x equals negative 25 plus 18 is negative 7. And then finally, we can divide each side by negative 1, and we'll get that x equals positive 7. Number 17. A summer camp counselor wants to find a length x in feet across the lake as represented in the sketch above. The lengths represented by AB, EB, BD, and CD on the sketch were determined to be 1,800 feet, 1,400 feet, 700 feet, and 800 feet respectively. Segment AC and DE intersect at B, and angle AEB and angle CDB have the same measure. What is the value of x? So first they tell us that AB is 1,800 feet. So we'll fill that in. 1,800 feet. They tell us EB is 1,400 feet. So E to B is 1,400 feet. BD is 700 feet. So B to D is 700. And finally, CD is 800. So CD is 800. The rest of the question basically tells us that both of these triangles are similar. So therefore, each of their lengths are going to be proportional. Notice here BD and EB are on the same side. And if you notice, BD is half of ED. So we can come to the conclusion that the triangle BCD, each measure or length is going to be half of that in ABE. So since C to D is 800, A to E must be double that. So we can conclude that x equals 1,600 feet because the bigger triangle ABE has lengths that are double the smaller triangle BCD. Number 19. In a right triangle, one angle measure x, where sine x equals 4/5, what is cosine of 90 minus x? For this question, we must know that sine of x equals cosine of 90 minus x. This is a principle of trigonometry. And reversely, we can say that cosine x equals sine of 90 minus x. So this is something really important to remember when you're taking the SAT. This is a principle that comes up a lot in the trig portions of this test. So since sine of x is the same thing as cosine of 90 degrees minus x, we can just say that they're both 4/5, which is going to be the answer. Number 20. If a equals 5 times the square root of 2 and 2 times a equals the square root of 2 times x, what is the value of x? So first we have a equals 5 times the square root of 2, and they give us this equation asking for x. So what we can do first is plug in a into the second equation. So 2 times, instead of a, we'll plug in what a is equal to. 5 times the square root of 2 equals the square root of 2 times x. 2 times 5 times square root of 2 is going to be 10 times square root of 2. And this square root, since it has a multiplication in the inside, we can break up the square root into square root of 2 times square root of x. In order to get x by itself, we can divide both sides by square root of 2. On the right side, the square roots of 2's cancel, and we're left with square root of x. On the right side, the same thing happens. The square root of 2's cancel, and we're left with just 10. Finally, to get x by itself, we need to square both sides. On the left side, 10 squared is 100. And on the right side, square root of x squared is just x. And we'll get that x equals 100. Number 1. John runs at different speeds as part of his training program. The graph shows his target heart rate at different times during his workout. On which interval is the target heart rate strictly increasing, then strictly decreasing? So we're looking for what point in the graph we're going up and then right back down. That's what we're looking for. So as we can see, we're increasing here, but then that's followed by a constant line. Here we're increasing, then strictly decreasing. This is the area where they're talking about. It's going to be at 50, and if we look at the answer choices, that is not between 0 and 30. That would be between 40 and 60. So the answer here is going to be answer choice B. Number 3. In the figure above, lines L and M are parallel, and lines S and T are parallel. If the measure of angle 1 is 35, what is the measure of angle 2? If the measure of angle 1 is 35, as we can see, these two angles add up to make 180 because there's a straight line and there's a line separating both of those angles. So in order to figure out what this other angle is, we know that a straight line is 180 degrees and angle 1 is going to be 35 degrees. When we subtract 180 and 35, this is going to be 145. All of the angles that I'm pointing out in red all share the same angle measure. So since this angle measure is 145, 2 would have this exact same angle measure. So the answer for number 3 is going to be D. Number 2, if y equals k times x, where k is a constant, and y equals 24 when x equals 6, what is the value of y when x equals 5? First, we use the first two equations that they give us for y and x. starting off with y equals x times k, we have that y equals 24 and x equals 6. If we were to plug this in, y equals 24, x equals 6, so this is going to be 6 times k. To get k by itself, we're going to divide each side by 6, and we'll get that k equals 4. Now we can plug that into the equation that we started off with. Instead of y equals k times x, it's going to be y equals 4 times x. And we can plug in 5 for x to figure out what y is. So if we plug in 5 for x, we have that y equals 4 times 5, which is going to be 20. And that will be answer choice C. For number 4, we have if 16 plus 4x is 10 more than 14, what is 8x? So first we need to figure out what x is, and then we multiply it by 8, and that's what our answer is going to be. First we can combine like terms. 10 plus 14 is going to be 24, and on the left side we have 16 plus 4x. To get x by itself, next we need to subtract 16. We'll have 4x equals 24 minus 16 is 8. Then we can divide each side by 4, and we'll get that x equals 2. Notice that 2 is one of our answer choices. However, the question is not asking for what x is. The question is asking for 8 times x. We now know that x is 2, and this is going to be 8 times 2, which is 16. The table above lists the annual budget in thousands of dollars for each of 6 different state programs in Kansas from 2007 to 2010. Both number 22 and 23 apply to this table. Number 22 asks, which of the following best approximates the average rate of change in the annual budget for agriculture/natural resources in Kansas from 2008 to 2010. So the way that we figure out the average change is we're going to figure out by how much did the annual budget change from 2008 to 2010. So we're going to go to agriculture and resources. We see that in 2008, they had a total of 358,708, and we need to subtract that from the 2010 figure, which is 488,106. And then we're going to divide this by the number of years that passed between the two dates, which is going to be 2 years. So if we plug this into a calculator, we're going to get 488,106 minus 358,708 is 129,398 divided by 2, which will be 64,699. And remember, this is in millions of dollars, or in thousands of dollars. So this would be approximately 65 million. Of the following, which program's ratio of its 2007 budget to its 2010 budget is closest to the human resources program's ratio of its 2007 budget to 2010 budget? So what we're going to do is we're going to get the figure in 2007 and divide it by 2008 first for the human resources program. Then we're going to do it for each of the answer choices and see which one is the closest. So first, for human resources, we're going to divide the 2007 figure, which is 4,051,050, divided by the 2010 figure, which is going to be 5,921,379. And we're going to get that this ratio is going to be 0.68. Now we're going to do this exact same thing for the rest of the answer choices. First, agriculture/natural resources. We're going to divide the 2007 figure, which is 373,904, divided by the 2010 figure, which is 488,106. and this is going to give us 0.76. Next, we're going to do the same thing with education. 2,164,607 divided by 3,008,036. And here we get 0.72. Highway and transportation, 1,468,482 divided by 1,773,893. This is going to be 0.82. And finally, public safety. We're going to divide 263,463 divided by 464,233. And this last one's going to be 0.56. And as we can see, the number closest to 0.68 will be education, which is 0.72. This is the closest to the ratio. And the way that we found the ratio was we divided the 2007 figure by the 2010 figure for each category. Number 24, which of the following is an equation of a circle in the xy plane with center 0, 4 and has a radius with endpoints 3/4, 5? So the first thing that we need to think about is the equation for a circle, which is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. We know that h, k is going to be our center, and r is our radius. So first we have here that our h is 0 and our k is 4. So we can plug that back into the formula. X minus 0 is going to be x squared plus y minus k is 4, so y minus 4 squared equals r squared. So looking at our answer choices, we know it can't be B because it's y minus 4, and it cannot be D. So we're left with answer choice A and C. Now I want to point out the right side of this equation, which has r squared. If we're looking at these two values, the r squared here would be 5/3. R squared for A would be 25/9. If you're thinking about which one was the squared version, you'd see that A has r squared, which will be 25/9. And A is going to be our answer. Number 26. Katrina is a botanist studying the production of pears by two types of pear trees. She noticed that type A produces 20% more pears than type B. So that means B times 20% more is going to equal type A. Based on Katrina's observation, if the type A tree produces 144, if A equals 144, how many pears did the type B tree produce? So since we know that A equals 144, we can plug that in. We're going to get B times 1.2 equals 144. And the last step would be to divide both sides by 1.2. And we're going to get that B equals, we can do 144 divided by 1.2 on our calculator. We'll get that this equals 120. So answer choice B. Number 25. The equation above expresses the approximate height h in meters of a ball t seconds after it is launched vertically upward from the ground with an initial velocity of 25 meters per second. After approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? So in order for the ball to hit the ground, that means that the h in our equation must equal 0. So if we replace h with 0, we'll get 0 equals negative 4.9 times t squared plus 25 times t. Our objective here is to get t by itself. So we're going to isolate one of the t's on the right side. We'll have t and negative 4.9 times t plus 25 equals 0. One answer is t equals 0. Before we throw the ball up, the ball's already on the ground, which makes sense. And on the other side, we need to set what's inside of the parentheses equal to 0. We can subtract 25 on both sides. We'll get negative 4.9t equals negative 25. And if we divide each side by negative 4.9, we'll get that t is approximately 5. And that'll be answer choice D. A square field measures 10 meters by 10 meters. 10 students each mark off a randomly selected region of the field. Each region is square and has lengths of 1 meter, and no two regions overlap. The students count the earthworms contained in the soil to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in each region. The results are shown in the table below. Which of the following is a reasonable approximation of the number of earthworms to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in the entire field? So what I want to point out first is that this field is 10 meters by 10 meters. That means that there is going to be 100 square feet within this entire space. Each of these regions, A, B, C, D, are all 1 by 1 spaces, and there's going to be 100 of them in total. This represents only 10 out of the 100 regions. So if we just take one of them, and we know that there's going to be 100 of them, we'll multiply any of these by 100. And we can see here, at least for region A, 107 times 100 is going to be 10,700. And if we do the exact same thing with the next region, region B, with 147 times 100, here we're going to get 14,700. And the closest answer choice to both of these will be answer choice C. Number 28. If the system of inequalities y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1 and y is greater than 1 over 2x minus 1 is graphed in the xy plane above, which quadrant contains no solution to the system? So first we're going to deal with y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1. First, we can treat it as if it's y equals 2x plus 1. This plus 1 is our y-intercept. So we can write a 1 here. We know we're going to cross the y-axis right there. 2 is our slope. This means that we're going to be going up 2 units and to the right 1 unit. So we're going to end up at 3, 1, which will be right here. And then to find the graph, we connect those two dots. And since what we have is an inequality and not an equation, we have that y is greater than or equal to 2x plus 1. The fact that it's greater than or equal to the equal to part means that we have a solid line. The greater than part means that we need to shade above. And as soon as we graph this portion, we can tell that there's no solution within this first graph that I graphed in quadrant 4. So the answer here will be C, quadrant 4. If you didn't observe that right away, what you could have done is graph the second equation, see where they overlap, and it will end up being quadrant 1, quadrant 2, and quadrant 3, leaving quadrant 4 out. Number 30. Which of the following is an equivalent form of the equation of the graph shown in the xy plane above, from which of the coordinates of vertex A can be identified as constants in the equation? So first of all, we have A and B. These two identify the x and y intercepts, just the x intercepts. This tells us what the x-intercepts will be. By setting the entire equation equal to 0, we can easily identify it. And the equation that we're looking for is our vertex equation. This second equation does not represent the vertex equation. However, it looks similar to it, which will be answer choice D. The formula for vertex form will be y equals x minus h squared plus k, where h comma k is our vertex. And that'll be answer choice D. Number 29. For a polynomial p of x, the value of p3 is negative 2. Which of the following must be true about p of x? So in order to solve this question, we really have to look at the answer choices because we're trying to figure out which statement is true about the p of x that they presented. A through C tell us about this term or polynomial being a factor. In order for this term to be a factor, the term that causes the expression to be 0, for example, A would be x equals 5. If we plugged in 5, this term would be 0. P of 5, P of 5 must equal 0. This would make x minus 5 a factor. But instead they tell us that p of 3 equals negative 2. Since they don't give us that p of some number equals 0, it is definitely not going to be any factors. They have not given us information about any of these other terms that'll tell us that it is a factor of p of x, because we're looking for p of that number equals 0. And we don't get that with any of those. The last answer choice is answer choice D. The remainder, when p of x is divided by x minus 3, is negative 2, and this is going to be the answer. Number 31. Y can husk at least 12 dozen ears of corn per hour, or at most 18 dozen ears of corn per hour. Based on this information, what is a possible amount of time in hours it could take Y to husk 72 dozen ears of corn? So since he can husk at least 12 or at most 18, it doesn't matter which one we use. So we can say 72, the number of dozens of ears of corn that he needs to husk, divided by the least number of dozens of ears of corn he husks per hour. And if you divide 72 by 12, we'll get that this takes 6 hours. So this is one of the possible answer choices you could have chosen. Number 32. A posted weight limit for a covered wooden bridge in Pennsylvania is 6,000 pounds. A delivery truck that is carrying X identical boxes, each weighing 14 pounds, will pass over the bridge. If the combined weight of the empty delivery truck and its driver is 1,400 pounds, what is the maximum possible value for X that will keep the combined weight of the truck, driver, and boxes below the bridge's posted weight limit? So what we can do is set up an equation to represent the situation. We know that the weight limit is 6,000 pounds. So we'll say 6,000 pounds equals, each box is identical. There's X boxes and they each weigh 14 pounds. So equals 14 pounds times the number of boxes. And the weight of an empty delivery truck and its driver is 4,500. So we can come up with this equation. To get X by itself, first we're going to subtract 4,500 on each side. This will tell us how much weight is available just for boxes. 6,000 minus 4,500 is going to be 1,500, which equals 14x. And then finally, to get x by itself, we're going to divide each side by 14. Then finally, we get that x equals 1500 divided by 14, which is going to be 107.14. So basically, the most amount of boxes we can take is 107. Number 33. According to the line graph above, the number of portable media players sold in 2008 is what fraction of the number sold in 2011? So what we're going to do is divide the 2008 number by the 2011 number. In 2008, there were a total of 100 sold. And in 2011, there was a total of 160 sold. We can simplify this fraction first by dividing each side by 10. We'll have 10 over 16. Then we can divide both of these numbers by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 16 divided by 2 is 8. And this is the fraction that we're looking for. Number 34. A local television station sells time slots for programs in 30-minute intervals. If the station operates 24 hours per day each day of the week, what is the total number of 30-minute time slots the station can sell for Tuesday and Wednesday? So we know that in 30 minutes, we'll have 2 intervals of this per hour. So there's 2 30-minute time slots within each hour. Between Thursday and Wednesday, which is 2 days, there's a total of 48 hours. So we know that if for 1 hour, that's 2 30-minute time slots. For 48 hours, all we have to do is multiply this number by 2, and that tells us the number of time slots within those 2 days, which is 96 time slots in total. Number 35. A dairy farmer uses a storage silo that is in the shape of a right circular cylinder above. If the volume of the silo is 72 pi cubic yards, what is the diameter of the base of the cylinder in yards? So first we can start off with the formula for the volume of a cylinder, which is volume equals pi r squared times the height. They tell us that volume equals 72 pi. And then from the picture, we can see that the height is 8. So we can plug in all of these values. V is going to be 72 pi. We're going to move this h in front and say 8 pi times r squared. In order to get r by itself, because then that's what will lead us to the diameter, we have to divide each side by 8 pi. On the left side, the 8 pi's cancel, and we have r squared. And on the right side, 72 pi divided by 8 pi is going to be 9. Now, to get r by itself, we can take the square root, and we'll get that r equals 3. If the radius is 3, the diameter is going to be double. So that means the diameter equals 6. We can say 6 yards, but since this is a bubble in, we're just going to write 6. Number 36. For what value of x is the function h above undefined? We have that a function is undefined when the denominator is 0. So first, we're going to factor out this denominator. X minus 5 squared, we're going to multiply x minus 5 by x minus 5. That's going to give us x squared minus 10x plus 25. Then next we can FOIL or distribute this 4. That's going to be plus 4x minus 20 plus 4. Next we can combine like terms. We'll have x squared, negative 10, and positive 4x come together to make negative 6x. And then positive 25 minus 20 is 5. Plus 4 is going to be plus 9. When we factor this out, we're going to get that x squared minus 6x plus 9 factors out to be x minus 3 squared. And here, in order to make the denominator 0, x must be equal to 3. So for what value of x is h undefined? 3. When x equals 3, h of x is undefined because the denominator equals 0. Number 37 and 38. Jessica opened a bank account that earns 2% interest compounded annually. Her initial deposit was $100, and she uses the expression 100 times x to the power of t to find the value of the account after t years. This is very important. We're looking for the value of the account, not the appreciation of the account. Number 37, what is the value of x in the expression? So whenever we're dealing with some kind of interest, what goes on the inside of the parentheses and is raised to the power of how many years or how many intervals that it's compounded, this is where our rate goes. So normally it's 100 times the rate to the power of t. This is if we're looking for the appreciation. When we're looking for the value of the account after t years, we need to write 1 plus our rate. Here they tell us that the interest rate that they earn is 2%. So r is going to be 0.02, which is 2%. And we're going to plug that in. So we'll get that 100, and then 1 plus 0.02 is 1.02 to the power of t. And as we can see, x equals 1.02. And this will be our answer. Number 38. Jessica's friend Tyshawn found an account that earns 2.5% interest compounded annually. Tyshawn made an initial deposit of $100 into this account at the same time Jessica made a deposit of $100 into her account. After 10 years, how much money will Tyshawn's initial deposit have earned than Jessica's initial deposit? Round your answer to the nearest cent and ignore the dollar sign when grading your response. So first we need to compare how much Tyshawn earns to how much Jessica earns. We know that the formula is 100 times 1 plus the rate to the power of t. So first, for Jessica, we know that the interest rate that she earned was 0.02 or 2%. 1 plus 0.02 is 1.02. And then we're raising this to the power of 10 years because we want to know after 10 years. So let's plug this into a calculator and see what we get. First, 1.02 raised to the power of 10 is going to be approximately 1.219. And then when we multiply this by 100, we're going to get that the value of her account is going to be $121.90. We're going to do the same thing for Tyshawn. Instead of 1.02, this is going to be 100 times 1.025. This is the 2.5% to the power of 10. So first we're going to do 1.025 raised to the power of 10. And then we're going to multiply by 100. And this is going to give us approximately $128. And they're looking for the difference between these two values. All we're going to do is subtract them. And we're going to get $6.10. This is the difference after 10 years, given the situation that they explain in number 38. Number 1, although this is actually number 59. If 5x plus 6 equals 10, what is the value of 10x plus 3? First, we need to get x by itself in the equation, and then we're going to plug in what x equals into the expression. So we start off with 5x plus 6 equals 10. To get x by itself, we need to subtract 6 on both sides. We'll have 5x equals 4. We divide each side by 5, and we're going to get that x equals 4 over 5. Now we need to plug this into the expression 10x plus 3. So we have 10x plus 3. We know x is 4 over 5. So 10 times 4 over 5 plus 3. When we multiply 10 by 4 over 5, we're dividing 10 by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And then we're multiplying by the number on top. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and 2 times 4 is going to be 8 plus 3, which is 11. And that'll be answer choice C. Number 2, x plus y equals 0, 3x minus 2y equals 10. Which of the following ordered pairs satisfies the system of equation above? What we need to do is first solve for one of the variables, then plug it in into the other equation. To get x by itself, we can subtract y on both sides, and we'll get x equals negative y. Now instead of x, we can plug in negative y. 3 times negative y minus 2y equals 10. 3 times negative y is negative 3y minus 2y equals 10. Negative 3y minus 2y is negative 5y, which equals 10. And then finally, to get y by itself, we divide each side by negative 5. And we're going to get that y equals 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. In order to find out what x is, we can plug that back in. We know x is negative y. So x is going to equal negative, and then y is negative 2. Negative 2 is going to be positive 2. So we'll get that x equals positive 2. And our ordered pair is going to be 2 comma negative 2. This will be our answer. And that's answer choice B. Number 3. A landscaping company estimates the price of a job in dollars using the expression 60 plus 12 times n times h, where n is the number of landscapers who will be working and h is the total number of hours the job will take using n landscapers. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 12 in the expression? So if we were to think about this equation as a y equals mx plus b, whatever's next to our variables is a changing rate. It's the cost or change per whatever x is. And then the number with no variables is usually our initial amount, or how much whatever we're talking about starts off at. So as you can see in our expression, 60 does not have a variable next to it. So this is the cost initially, or the starting price without any work being done. 12 is a changing factor that correlates to the number of workers and the hours that the workers work. 12 is going to end up being the hourly pay times the number of workers times the number of hours that they work. So if we go through our answer choices, A, a company charges $12 per hour for each landscaper. That's going to end up being the answer. B, a minimum of 12 landscapers will work. No, we have the number of landscapers denoted as N. We don't know how many there are, so it can't be B. C, the price of every job increases by $12 each hour. That can't be it either. The price of the job is determined when we know how many hours or how many landscapers. The price doesn't increase. And then D, each landscaper works 12 hours. Similar to B, we have H denoted as the total number of hours that's not set by the expression. So the answer is going to be A. The 12 represents the dollars per hour that each landscaper is getting paid. Number 4. Which of the following is equivalent to the expression shown above? The way that we test which of these expressions is equivalent to the expression above is we can test to see if we get the very first term, which is 9a to the 4th. The way that we test that is we get our first term inside of the binomial and raise it to the power on the outside. So for a, we have 3a squared, and we're going to raise that to the exponent on the outside, which is 2. 3 squared is 9, and a squared squared is going to be a to the power of 4. Notice this is what we get in the solution or in the expression we're trying to find equivalency for. So it might be a. If we do the same for b, we have 3 times a, and this time it's raised to the power of 4. 3 to the power of 4 is 81, and a to the power of 4. 81 is not what we have in this first term, so it cannot be b. For c, we're going to have 9a squared raised to the power of 2. Once again, 9 squared is going to end up being 81. A squared is going to be a to the 4th, so it cannot be c. And then for d, we have 9a to the 4th, and I can guarantee that 9 to the 4th is not going to be 9. And therefore the answer is going to be answer choice A. Number 5. If k is greater than 0 and x equals 7 in the equation above, what is the value of k? First, we're going to rewrite the question. 2 times k squared, the square root of 2 times k squared plus 17 minus x equals 0. They tell us that x equals 7. So we'll have the square root of 2k squared plus 17 minus 7 equals 0. We can add 7 on both sides. Square root of 2k squared plus 17 equals positive 7. We can square both sides to get rid of the square root on the left. We'll have 2k squared plus 17 equals 7 squared, which is 49. Next, we can subtract 17 on each side. We'll have 2k squared equals 49 minus 17, which will be 32. To get k squared by itself, we can divide each side by 2, and we'll get that k squared equals 16. And finally, we can take the square root of both sides, and we'll get that k equals plus or minus 4. So this means that it equals positive 4 and equals negative 4. But when we look back at the beginning of the question, it says if k is bigger than 0. So that means k cannot be negative 4, and k has to be positive 4, which will be answer choice C. Number 6. In the xy plane above, line L is parallel to line K. What is the value of P? Whenever we have two parallel lines together, one is usually a ratio of the other. Notice that our y value for line L is 2, and the y value for line K is negative 4. What can we multiply by positive 2 in order to get to negative 4? We know that this factor ratio is going to be negative 2. To get from L to line K, you have to multiply by negative 2. We can do the same thing with the x values. We have negative 5, and if we multiply by the ratio factor of negative 2, negative 5 times negative 2 is going to be positive 10, which is going to be our answer for P. P is going to be positive 10. Another way to think about this is to find the slope of line L. We have 0, 2 and negative 5, 0. We can do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Negative 5 minus 0 is negative 5. And this is going to be 2 over 5. We can do the same thing here. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we know that the slope has to be the same. So if we evaluate the fraction on the left, negative 4 minus 0 is negative 4. And then 0 minus p is going to be negative p. Negative 4 over negative p is positive 4 over p. And then at this point, we have that 2 over 5 equals 4 over p. To solve for p, we can cross multiply. On the left side, we have 2 times p. And on the right side, we have 5 times 4, which will be 20. And finally, to get p by itself, we divide by 2 on each side. And this will give us the same answer, that p equals 10. One way we used algebra, using the slopes. and the other way we use logic and the application of parallel lines. Number 7. If x to the power of a squared divided by x to the power of b squared equals x to the power of 16, x is greater than 1, and a plus b equals 2, what is the value of a minus b? When we have the same base dividing, we can simplify it by subtracting the exponents. So x to the power of a squared divided by x to the power of b squared becomes x to the power of a squared minus b squared. Since they're dividing, we can subtract them. And this is going to equal x to the power of 16. When we have the same base on opposite sides of the equal sign, all we need to do is set the exponents equal to each other. Here we have a squared minus b squared equals 16. A squared minus b squared is a difference of squares. This factors out into a plus b times a minus b, which equals 16. In the question, they tell us that a plus b equals 2. So here we have a plus b. We know this is going to become 2 times a minus b, which equals 16. Remember that the point of this question is to figure out what a minus b is, and we're one step away from it. All we have to do is divide each side by 2, and we'll get that a minus b equals 16 divided by 2, which is 8. Number 8. The measure a in degrees of an external angle of a regular polygon is related to the number of sides n of the polygon by the formula above. If the measure of an external angle of a regular polygon is greater than 50, what is the greatest number of sides it can have? So first, what we need to do, the answer is going to be the number of sides that we get. So the number of sides is going to equal, how do we get n by itself here? We're going to divide each side by a. And we're going to get n equals 360 divided by a. They want this value of a to be greater than 50. What's the maximum number of sides? N. If the external angle of a regular polygon is greater than 50. So first, let's see if it is 50. What do we end up getting? So 360 divided by 50 is approximately 7.2. And since we know that 50 has to be a number bigger, the number in the bottom, a, has to be a number bigger than 50, that's going to make our result smaller. If the number in the denominator gets bigger, our result gets smaller. So the maximum number of sides that we can have is going to be 7. Because when we plug in 50, we get 7.2. And the closest whole number below 7.2 is going to end up being 7. Number 9. The graph of a line in the xy plane has slope 2 and contains the point 1, 8. The graph of a second line passes through the point 1, 2 and 2, 1. If the two lines intersect at a, b, what is the value of a plus b? So what we have to do here is come up with equations for both lines and then figure out where they intersect. We can set them equal to each other, and then we're going to add that coordinate together. So first we have a point and a slope. We can plug that into point slope form, which is y minus 8 equals 2 times x minus 1. We can distribute the 2. Y minus 8 equals 2x minus 2. And then we can add 8 on both sides. We'll get y equals 2x. Negative 2 plus 8 is going to be plus 6. So the equation for our first line that has a slope of 2 and contains the point 1, 8 is going to be y equals 2x plus 6. The other line, the second line, passes through the points 1, 2 and 2, 1. So first we need to find the slope of this line. The slope of this second line is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 1 minus 2 is going to be negative 1, 2 minus 1 is positive 1, and this turns out to be negative 1. We can use either point, but we're going to plug it into the same equation. Y minus 2 equals our slope, negative 1, times x minus 1. We can distribute the negative 1. We'll get y minus 2 equals negative x plus 1. Then we can add 2 on both sides, and we'll get that y equals negative x plus 3. The last step is to set these two x's equal to each other, or one of the last steps. So we're going to get 2x plus 6 equals negative x plus 3. We can add x over, and we'll get 3x. We can subtract 6 over. 3 minus 6 is going to be negative 3. And then if we divide by 3 on both sides, we're going to get that x equals negative 1. We can plug this back into either equation, and we'll find the y value. So if we plugged in x equals negative 1 here, we'll get 2 times negative 1 plus 6. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, plus 6 is going to be positive 4. Now we have the point where the two lines intersect. The y value is 4. And then we got that the x value equals negative 1. So when we add these two values together, negative 1 plus 4 is going to end up being 3. Or answer choice B. Number 10. Which of the following equations has a graph in the xy plane for which y is always greater than or equal to negative 1? So we need to think about the smallest value that ends up coming out for whatever the situation for x is, and then how we can apply the rest of the operations. For example, this absolute value of x, the smallest number that you can get out of here is going to be 0. And so if we have 0 minus 2, that would give us negative 2, which is not greater than or equal to negative 1, so it cannot be A. For B, we have the same situation. The smallest possible value for x squared is going to be 0. And if we have 0 minus 2, that would be negative 2. And negative 2 is not greater than or equal to negative 1. So it cannot be B either. The same idea is true for x cubed. However, we can get a much smaller number than 0. And when we subtract a small number, when we subtract 2 from a very small number, a large negative number, we're going to get an even bigger negative number. So this is going to be a large negative number. For C, we have x minus 2 squared. The squared on the outside is the key. If we have a negative number inside of our parentheses and we square it, this is going to be a larger positive number. If we have 0 squared, then we'll have 0. And if we have a positive number squared, then we're just going to get another positive number. So the smallest possible value for C would actually be 0, and that is greater than or equal to negative 1, so it has to be answer choice C. Number 11. Which of the following complex numbers is equivalent to 3 minus 5i divided by 8 plus 2i? Whenever we have division with imaginary or complex numbers, what we need to do is multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate of the bottom. So what does the word conjugate mean? All we're doing is we're getting this term, or this binomial complex number, and we're replacing the sign on the inside, the middle sign. Instead of 8 plus 2i, we're going to multiply top and bottom by 8 minus 2i. Let me go back. 8 minus 2i. On top, we can FOIL the two binomials. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times negative 2i is negative 6i. Negative 5i times 8 is negative 40i. And negative 5i times negative 2i is going to be positive 10i squared. On the bottom, we have b plus 2i, b minus 2i. Whenever we have the conjugates multiplying together, all it is, it's the first term squared, 8 squared is 64, minus the second term squared. 2i squared is going to be 4i squared. Remember that I squared is simply going to be negative 1. So wherever we see an I squared, we can substitute it for negative 1. Now we're going to combine like terms. Negative 6i minus 40i is going to be negative 46i. We're going to have this 24 in front. And this positive 10i squared is going to become positive 10 times negative 1. The same thing happens with the I squared in the bottom. We're going to have 64 minus 4 times negative 1. On top, 10 times negative 1 is negative 10. And we're going to have 24 minus 10, which will be 14, minus 46i over negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. And 64 plus 4 is going to be 68. Now we can separate the two fractions. So we'll have 14 over 68 minus 46 over 68i. And we can divide all of these terms by 2, and we'll end up getting 7 over 34 minus 23 over 34i, which will be answer choice C. Number 12. A website uses the formula above to calculate the seller's rating R based on the number of favorable reviews F and unfavorable reviews N. Which of the following expresses the number of favorable reviews in terms of the other variables? So just a hint for this question, you do not have to read what the question is asking for. If you look on top to the equation that they give you, and then you look at the answer choices, it's evident that our objective is to get F by itself from this equation that they give us in the beginning. So starting off with R equals F divided by N plus F, the first step is to multiply N plus F on both sides. So N plus F and then N plus F. On the right side, they cancel and we're left with just F. On the left side, we can distribute the R. R times N is Rn. And then R times F is RF. Whenever we have the variable we're trying to isolate on both sides of the equal sign, we need to move every single term that has that variable over to one side. So what we're going to do is move this RF over to the right side by subtracting RF on both sides. On the left side, the RFs cancel and we're just left with Rn equals F minus RF. Now that we have the term that we're trying to isolate on the same side, we can factor it out. If we factor out an F, we'll be left with 1 minus R, and this is going to equal R times N. The last step to get F by itself is going to be to divide by 1 minus R on both sides. And we're going to get that F equals Rn over 1 minus R, which will be answer choice B. Number 13. What is the sum of all values of m that satisfy 2m squared minus 16m plus 8 equals 0? What we're supposed to do is plug this into the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is m equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. If we were to separate this fraction, we'd get that m equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. Notice that one of the solutions will be the first fraction plus the second fraction. The other solution will be the first fraction minus the second fraction. So when we have plus and minus and we combine those two, the positive version of this second fraction and the negative version of this second fraction are going to cancel each other out. So what we're going to end up with is going to be m equals negative b over 2a. Positive second fraction is going to cancel with the negative part of the second fraction, and then we're just going to get minus b over 2a again. This is going to be negative 2b over 2a, which is just going to give us negative b over a. So in order to find out what the solution is, all we need to do is divide negative b by a. We have that b is negative 16, so negative b will be positive 16. And then for a, we have 2. So to simplify this fraction, negative b over a, this is going to be 16 over 2, which is going to equal 8. Number 14. A radioactive substance decays at an annual rate of 13%. If the initial amount of the substance is 325 grams, which of the following functions f models the remaining amount of the substance in grams t years later? So for a question like this, we're always going to have it as our principal amount or the initial amount, then 1 plus or minus the rate of decay or growth, depending on whether we're dealing with decay or growth, raised to the power of t. So we know that the initial amount is 325 grams, so we're going to write that as 325. Then since this is radioactive decay, we're going to use 1 minus our rate. Our rate is 13%, and this is going to be raised to the power of t. Finally, we'll have 325. 1 minus 13% is going to be 87%, or 0.87 raised to the power of t. And this is going to be answer choice A. Number 15. The expression 5x minus 2 over x plus 3 is equivalent to which of the following? So for this question, what we need to do is we need to think about how we can cancel out x plus 3 on the bottom with x plus 3 on the top. Now, in order to be able to factor out to get x plus 3, we would need 5x plus 15. And when we end up factoring out a 5, we'll get 5 times x plus 3. And then we will be dividing this by x plus 3. And then once we simplify the fraction, these two x plus 3's will cancel and we'll be left with 5 and then whatever's left over. Now the point is, how do we figure out what's left over? How do we get from negative 2, or how do we get to negative 2 using positive 15? We get this positive 15 because we know that when we factor out a 5, we need x plus 3. But 15 plus or minus what number gets us negative 2? And this will be 15 minus 17. As we can see, this is equivalent to 5x minus 2 over x plus 3. All we did was we changed this negative 2 to 15 minus 17. Now that we have this minus 17, when we split up the fraction, we're going to split it up right here. So the first fraction that we end up getting is going to be x plus 5x plus 15 divided by x plus 3. The second fraction is going to be minus 17 over x plus 3. So when the two x plus 3's cancel, we're going to have 5 minus 17 over x plus 3. Number 16. The sales manager of a company awarded a total of $3,000 in bonuses to the most productive salespeople. The bonuses were awarded in amounts of $250 or $750. If at least one $250 bonus and at least one $750 bonus were awarded, what is one possible number of $250 bonuses? So the key here is that the total number of bonuses need to add up to $3,000. We know that we need at least one $250 bonus and at least one $750 bonus. And at this point, we have $1,000. with these two bonuses. We can just replicate this 2 more times, and if we have 3 $250 bonuses and 3 $750 bonuses, this will in total be $3,000. So one possible number for the number of $250 bonuses given is 3. Number 17, in the equation above, A, B, and C are constants. If the equation is true for all values of x, what is the value of b? Here we have an equation where the right side is ax squared plus bx plus c, and the left side we're able to simplify. What we want to do is simplify the left side to the point where it looks like the right side. We have some number times a squared, some number times x, and then plus some number. So we need to simplify the left side of this equation, and then the answer will be evident. First, 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 2x times 5 is going to be plus 10x. Then 3 times 3x is going to be 9x. And 3 times 5 is going to be 15. We can combine these two middle terms and we'll get 6x squared plus 19x plus 15. And remember, this equals ax squared plus bx plus c. The coefficient of x, or the number in front of x, is b, and that is going to equal the coefficient in front of x for the other side of the equal sign, which is going to be 19. And this will be our answer, 19. Number 18, in the figure above, line AE is parallel to line CD, and segment AD intersects segment CE at B. What is the length of segment CE? So we're looking for the length of this entire line from C to E. If we notice, since CD and AE are parallel, there's going to be some kind of proportionality between the two triangles that we see. Notice here that BD we have 5 and AB we have 10. At this point, it's evident that this smaller triangle is half of the bigger triangle. Therefore, if BE correlates to CB and BE is 8, we know that CB has to be half of 8, which is going to be 4. And we know that CE is going to equal CB plus BE. This entire red line is going to be this green line plus this blue line. And that's what we need to add together. So CE, the line that we're looking for the length of, is going to be CB, which is 4, plus BE, which is 8. And 4 plus 8 is 12, which is going to be our answer for this question. Number 19. In the xy plane above, O is the center of the circle, and the measure of angle AOB is pi over a radians. What is the value of A? So here we have our angle, and this point, square root of 3, 1, represents the x and y coordinates that lead to that point. So the x value of this triangle, or the horizontal value of the triangle, is square root of 3, and the vertical portion is 1. So when we have the opposite and adjacent angles, sides of an angle, that correlates to tangent theta, which is going to equal the opposite over the adjacent. We can simplify 1 over the square root of 3 to be square root of 3 over 3. And we know that tangent theta is square root of 3 over 3 when theta equals 30 degrees, or pi over 6. So they tell us that this angle measure is pi over A. What is the value of A? We get pi over 6, so we find that A equals 6. Number 20. In the system of equations above, A and B are constants. If the system has infinitely many solutions, what is the value of A over B? Since both of these equations have infinitely many solutions, That means the ratios are going to be exactly the same because all we have to do to one of them is multiply the entire thing by any constant to get to the other one, or a specific constant. So in order to find out what a over b is, all we need to do is get the a in the other equation and divide it by the b in the other equation. We can simplify this to 1 over 4, which is going to be our answer. Number 1. A musician has a new song available for downloading and streaming. The musician earns 9 cents each time the song is downloaded and $0.002 each time the song is streamed. Which of the following expressions represents the amount in dollars that the musician earns if the song is downloaded D times and streamed S times? So we know that he earns 9 cents each time the song is downloaded, so we can write 0.09 times the number of times that the song is downloaded. This represents how much the musician makes for downloaded songs. And then we're going to add this to how much the musician makes for their streamed songs. We know that they earn $0.002 on each streamed song times the number of streamed songs. And the total that the musician earns for both of them combined, all we have to do is add these two terms together. And we're going to get answer C. Number 2. A quantity control manager at a factory selects 7 light bulbs at random for inspection out of every 400 light bulbs produced. At this rate, how many light bulbs will be inspected if the factory produces 20,000 light bulbs? So we know that they inspected 7 out of 400, and they want to know how many will be inspected out of 20,000. In order to solve for x, we can cross multiply. 7 times 20,000 is going to be 140,000. And 400 times x is 400. X. To get x by itself, we're going to divide each side by 400. And then finally, we'll get that x equals 140,000 divided by 400 is going to be 350, which will be answer choice B. Number 3, one end of a spring is attached to a ceiling. When an object of mass m kilograms is attached to the other end of the spring stretches to a length of L centimeters, as shown in the equation above. What is m when L is 73? So we start off with the equation L equals 24 plus 3.5 m. And they tell us what is m. We're looking for m when L equals 73. So what we're going to do is plug in 73 for L, and we'll have 73 equals 24 plus 3.5 m. Now we need to solve for m. First, we're going to subtract 24 on each side. On the right side, when the 24s cancel, we have 3.5 m. And then on the left side, 73 minus 24 is going to be 49. Finally, to get m by itself, we can divide each side by 3.5. And when we divide 49 by 3.5, we're going to find that m equals 14. And that'll be answer choice A. These directions are for questions 4 and 5. The amount of money a performer earns is directly proportional to the number of people attending the performance. The performer earns $120 at a performance where 8 people attend. How much money will the performer earn when 20 people attend a performance? So we know that the performer earns $120 when 8 people attend, and we want to know how much money X will the performer earn when 20 people attend. Once again, to solve for X, we need to cross multiply. 20 times 120 is going to be 2400. And then 8 times x is 8x. In order to get x by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 8. And we'll get that x equals 2400 divided by 8 is going to be 300. Or answer choice C. Number 5. The performer uses 43% of the money earned to pay the cost involved in putting each performance. The rest of the money earned is the performer's profit. What is the profit the performer makes at a performance where 8 people attended? So if 43% of the money is used for the cost of putting on each performance, that means that the performer gets to keep 57% of what he earns. In an 8-person show, we know that the performer earns a total of $120. So all we need to do is find 57% of 120. The way we find this is by multiplying 0.57 by 120. And when we multiply these two numbers together, 0.57 times 120 is going to be 68.4 or $68.40, which is answer choice C. Number 6. When 4 times the number x is added to 12, the result is 8, so equals 8. What number results when 2 times x is added to 7? So first we're going to try to find what x equals, and then we're going to plug what x equals into the expression on the right. First, in order to find x, we're going to subtract 12 on both sides. We'll get 4x equals 8 minus 12 is negative 4. And to get x by itself, we can divide by 4 on each side. We'll get that x equals negative 1. Now to answer the question, 2x plus 7, we know that x is negative 1. So this will be 2 times negative 1 plus 7. 2 times negative 1 is going to be negative 2 plus 7 will be 5. And the answer will be B. Make a note that one of the answer choices is A. This will usually be the case whenever we get x by itself. Whatever x equals will be one of the answer choices because a lot of people will stop right here. But you have to know that what the question is really asking for is what 2x plus 7 is. Number 7. The equation above represents a parabola in the xy plane. Which of the following equivalent forms of the equation displays the x-intercepts of the parabola as constants or coefficients? So what we're looking for is an equation that has two binomials being multiplied together. The reason why we're able to identify the x-intercepts is because when we're looking for the x-intercept, that means y equals 0. And when we set these two binomials equal to 0, it's very easy to find what the x-intercepts are. And the only answer choice that has this kind of equation is going to be answer choice D. Number 8. In a video game, each player starts the game with K points and loses 2 points each time a task is not completed. If a player who gains no additional points fails to complete 100 tasks has a score of 200, what is the value of K? So we know that we start off with K points and we lose 2 points each time a task is not completed. I'll call that as X each time a task is not completed. And we know that at the end of it all, this player has 200 points. They tell us that if the player fails to complete 100 tasks, what is the value of K? So they're telling us if X equals 100, what is K? So we're going to plug in 100 for X. This is going to be K minus 2 times 100. And this, equals 200. Negative 2 times 100 is going to give us k minus 200, which equals 200. And then finally, to get k by itself, we'll add 200 to both sides. On the left side, these cancel and we're left with k. On the right side, 200 plus 200 will give us 400. And the answer will be D. Number 10. A function f satisfies f2 equals 3, f3 equals 5. A function g satisfies g of 3 equals 2, and g of 5 equals 6. What is the value of f of g of 3? So this is what we're looking for, f of g of 3. First, we need to see what this inside part is. What's g of 3? In the question, they tell us that g of 3 equals 2. So since g of 3 equals 2, all we need to do is substitute g of 3 for what we know it equals, which is 2. Then we can go back to our question and see that f of 2 equals 3. So we know that f of 2 is going to equal 3, which is going to be our final answer, or answer choice B. Number 9. A worker uses a forklift to move boxes that weigh either 40 pounds or 65 pounds each. Let X be the number of 40-pound boxes. So make sure we note that. X is 40-pound boxes and Y is 65-pound boxes. The forklift can carry up to either 45 boxes or a weight of 2,400 pounds. Which of the following system of inequalities represents the relationship? So the forklift can carry up to this amount. So we know that whatever equation we come up with for each of them, it needs to be less than or equal to either of these two values. So less than or equal to 45 boxes or less than or equal to 2,400 pounds. So we need to see which numbers or combination of numbers gives us the number of boxes in total, and which combination of numbers and letters gives us the total weight. So we know that each box of 40 pounds is represented by X. So X, the number of 40-pound boxes, plus Y, the number of 65-pound boxes, has to be less than or equal to 45 boxes in total. So if we look at our answer choices, it might be answer choice A. It might be answer choice B. It cannot be C because it's X plus Y is less than or equal to 45. And here we have X plus Y is less than or equal to 2,400. And it can't be this last one for the same reason. It's either going to be A or B. To figure out the total weight, we know each box X weighs 40 pounds times the number of boxes X plus 65 pounds times the number of boxes Y. And that should be less than or equal to 2,400. When we look at the remaining answers, that's going to be answer choice A. Number 11. Tony is planning to read a novel. The table above shows information about the novel Tony's reading speed and the amount of time he plans to spend reading the novel each day. If Tony reads at the rate given in the table, which of the following is closest to the number of days it will take Tony to read the entire novel? So we're looking for the number of days in total it's going to take Tony to read this entire novel. First, what we need to do is figure out how many pages he's reading given a certain time frame. So per minute, per hour, per day. And it shows here that he reads 250 words per minute. So we're going to multiply the number of words per minute by 180 to give us the number of words per day. Because we know that this will be how many words he reads per day. It says that he reads 3 hours per day. And he reads 250 words per minute. So if he's reading 3 hours per day, that means that he's reading for a total of 180 minutes. And if he's reading 250 pages per minute, this will be the total amount of pages that he reads per day, which would be 45,000 words per day. Next, we're going to get the total number of words in the novel, which is 349,168, and we're going to divide it by the number of words that he reads each day. And this is going to give us approximately 7.76 days in total. And the closest number to this will be 8, or answer choice B. Number 12. On January 1st, 2000, there were 175,000 tons of trash in a landfill that had a capacity of 325,000 tons. Each year since then, the amount of trash in the landfill increased by 7,500 tons. If Y represents the time in years after January 1st, 2000, which of the following inequalities describes the set of years where the landfill is at or above capacity? So we know that as of January 1st, 2000, there was a total of 175,000 tons of trash, and that each year the amount of trash increased by 7,500 tons times the number of years that passed. Now we're finding the inequality that describes the set of years where the landfill is at or above capacity. So we're looking for this expression to be greater than or equal to the capacity that they gave us, which is 325,000. And if you look at our answer choices, this is answer choice D. Number 13. A researcher conducted a survey to determine whether people at a certain large town preferred watching sports on television to attending the sporting event. The researcher asked 117 people who visited a local restaurant on a Saturday, and 7 people refused to respond. Which of the following factors makes it least likely that a reliable conclusion can be drawn about the sporting event, about the sports watching preference of all people in the town? A. Sample size, B. Population size, C. The number of people who refused to respond, or D. Where the survey was given. Now, if the researcher is trying to find where people like to watch the local game, whether it's on television or attending the sporting event, and the researcher is asking people at a local restaurant on a Saturday, then the people who he's asking might have a swayed choice because they are not at the game. It's likely that the game is being held on this Saturday, and whoever prefers going to the game will likely be at the game. So it's not likely that the researcher will get a lot of responses where they enjoy going to the sporting event, because the people who want to go will probably be there. So it's not the sample size, that's not the issue, how many people they're asking. The population size, that's not the problem either. The number of people who refuse to respond, that has nothing to do with whether people prefer to watch sports on television or attend. What matters is where the survey was given. It was given at a restaurant on a Saturday where people are most likely to have a swayed answer. Number 14. According to the line of best fit in the scatter plot above, which of the following best approximates the year in which the number of miles traveled by air passengers in country X is estimated to be 550 billion. So we want to see where the number of miles traveled is 550 billion, which would be the horizontal on this line that I just drew. If we go all the way to the line of best fit, we'll see that the point lies right here. And this point is somewhere in between the year 2000 and 2005. So which answer choice is in between 2000 and 2005? That'll be answer choice C, or 2003. Number 15. The distance traveled by Earth in one orbit around the Sun is about 580 million miles. Earth makes one complete orbit around the Sun in 1 year. Of the following, which is closest to the average speed of Earth in miles per hour as it orbits the sun. So what we're looking for is the speed of the Earth in miles per hour. So we need to take the total number of miles that it travels in 1 year and divide it by the total number of hours that the Earth travels in 1 year. We see here that the Earth travels a total of 580 million miles. And then now we need to figure out how many hours there are in a year. So we know that there's 24 hours in a day and there's 365 days in a year. So to find the total number of hours, we're going to multiply 24 by 365, and this gives us 8,760. So to figure out the miles per hour of the sun as it Earth as it orbits the sun, we're going to divide 580 million by 8,760, and this will give us approximately 66,210, which will be answer choice A. Number 17, the atomic weight of an unknown element in atomic mass units is approximately 20% less than that of calcium. So the mass of this unknown element, we'll call it U, is 20% less than that of calcium. So when we have calcium times 0.8, which is 20% less than 100, we're going to get this unknown element. It tells us that the atomic weight of calcium is 40 atomic mass units. Which of the following best approximates the atomic weight in atomic mass units of the unknown element? So they tell us that calcium is 40 AMU. Now we can plug in 40 for C, and we'll get that U equals 0.8 times 40. And when we multiply 0.8 times 40, we get that U equals 32. So therefore, number 17 is going to be answer choice C. Number 16, the table above summarizes the results of 200 law student graduates who took the bar exam. If one of the surveyed graduates who passed the bar exam is chosen at random for an interview, what is the probability that the person chosen did not take the review course? So going back to this last sentence, if one of the surveyed graduates who passed the bar exam is chosen at random for an interview, what is the probability that the person chosen did not take the review course? So first, our sample size is just going to be those who passed the bar exam. So our total number of people that we're trying to find the probability of will be 25, because 25 people passed the bar exam in total. Of those 25 people, 7 did not take a review course. So if we were to choose somebody at random out of these 25 people, if we were to find one person who did not take the review course, the probability would be 7, because 7 people passed out of 25. 25 people passed in total. So the answer will be answer choice B. Number 18. A survey was taken of the value of homes in a country, and it was found that the mean home value was $165,000 and the median home value was $125,000. Which of the following situations could explain the difference between the mean and median home values in a country? So typically when you have a set of data and the mean is higher than the median or lower than the median, it's likely that you have outliers. Since the mean is above the median, it's likely that we have outliers to the higher end. And we'll read our answer choices. The homes have values that are close to each other. If that were true, then both of these numbers would be close. The mean and median would be close together. B, there are a few homes that are valued much less than the rest. As we discussed, since the mean is higher than the median, it's going to be the other way around. There's going to be a few homes that are valued much more than the rest. So it can't be B. C is exactly what I just said. There's a few homes that are valued much more than the rest, which sounds like the right answer, but we'll see. Answer choice D, many of the homes are valued between $125,000 and $165,000, which is not true. So the answer will be answer choice C. A sociologist chooses 300 students at random from each of two schools and asks each student how many siblings he or she has. The results are shown in the table below. There are a total of 2,400 students at Lincoln School and 3,300 students at Washington School. Number 19. What is the median number of siblings for all the students surveyed? So we know that from each school, a total of 300 students were surveyed. So if we're looking for the number in the middle, if we were to write all of our answers in order from 0 siblings to 4 siblings, then that median number would be in the spot of 150. So for Lincoln School, the first 120 people had 0 siblings, and then the next 80 had 1 sibling. So the 150th person falls in this 1 sibling category. The same is true for Washington School. For 0 siblings, there's 140 people, and then the 150th person would be in this category with 1 sibling, which will be answer choice B. Number 20. Based on the survey data, which of the following most accurately compares the expected total number of students with 4 siblings at the two schools? So we know that 300 students were surveyed in each school, and for 4 siblings, each school had 10 people say that they had 4 siblings. Now what we need to do is think about how many more people would choose or have 4 siblings within each school. So if the sample size was 300, and for Lincoln School, the total number of students is 2,400, then what we need to do is multiply by 8. To get from 300 to 2,400 is going to be the same as 10 people that actually said that they had 4 siblings divided by the total number of people who actually have 4 siblings in the entire school. Essentially, all we need to do is multiply by 8. So if we multiply 10 by 8, we'll find that x equals 80. And this is for Lincoln School specifically. We're going to do the same thing with Washington School. In total, Washington School has a total of 3,300 students, and only 300 students were sampled. So in order to get from the sample space to the whole population, we have to multiply by 11. And we're going to do that the exact same thing with the number of people who said they had 4 siblings. So we'll multiply 10 by 11, which will give us 110. And the number of people who are expected to have 4 siblings in Washington School is 110. And the difference here will be 30. So now let's look at the answer choices. A, the total number of students with 4 siblings is expected to be equal at the two schools. That's not true. The total number of students with 4 siblings at Lincoln School is expected to be 30 more than at Washington School. That's not true. We know that Washington is going to be 30 more than Lincoln. The total number of students with 4 siblings at Washington School is expected to be 30 more than at Lincoln School. That's going to be the answer. Answer choice C. We'll read D just to make sure. The total number of students with 4 siblings at Washington School is expected to be 900 more than at Lincoln School. That is not true. Washington School has 900 more students in total, not with 4 siblings specifically. So that'll be answer choice C. Number 21. A project manager estimates that a project will take X hours to complete where X is more than 100. The goal is for the estimate to be within 10 hours of the time it will actually take to complete the project. If the manager meets the goal and it takes Y hours to complete the project, which of the following inequalities represents the relationship between the estimated time and the actual completion time? So we know that the difference between the expected time X and the actual time Y needs to be 10 hours. So we can find that the positive difference between the actual time it took and the expected time it took needs to be less than 10. Whenever we have an absolute value and an inequality, this breaks down into two separate inequalities. The first will look exactly the same, just without the absolute value. The other will have y minus x. Instead of less than, it's going to be greater than. And then we're going to multiply the right side of the inequality by -1. So we'll have y minus x is greater than -10. And finally, we'll have that -10 is less than y minus x, and y minus x is less than +10. And that is shown in answer choice D. At a large distance r from a radio antenna, the intensity of the signal I is related to the power of the signal P by the formula above. Which of the following expresses the square of the distance from the radio antenna in terms of the intensity of the radio signal and the power of the signal? So if we look at the answer choices, we can see that they all have r squared equals. Given the equation that they give us in the beginning, I equals P over 4 pi r squared, it's evident that our goal is to get r squared by itself. Our first step is to multiply r squared on both sides. On the left side, we'll have r squared times I equals. On the right side, we'll have P over. These r squares cancel, and it'll just be P over 4 pi. Next, to get r squared by itself, we have to divide both sides by I. And when we divide by I, that's the same as multiplying by 1 over I. On the left side, these i's cancel, and we're left with r squared. On the right side, p times 1 is p. And 4 pi times I is going to be 4 pi I, which will be answer choice B. Number 23. For the same signal emitted by a radio antenna, observer A measured the intensity to be 16 times the intensity measured by observer B. The distance of observer A from the radio antenna is what fraction of the distance of observer B from the radio antenna? So we're trying to find what's the distance r that will cause I to multiply by 16. Since r squared is in the denominator, that's why all of these fractions result in the intensity increasing. Now the next part that we need to pay attention to is the r squared part. We need to square whatever the distance is, and it's going to result in a 16 times intensity magnification. The intensity is going to increase by a factor of 16. The way that we get that is if we square 1 over 4. And since it's in the denominator, this will become 1 over 16, and it'll end up increasing the intensity of the radio signal by 16 times. So the distance will be 1/4 the distance. And the last question, the 100th SAT question for this video, number 24, it's actually going to be number 20 or number 100. We have x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 2y equals -1. The equation of a circle in the xy plane is shown above. What is the radius of the circle? So we have x squared, and we're going to reorder this so that the x's are together and the y's are together. Plus 4x, we're going to leave a space, plus y squared, minus 2y minus 2y. We're going to leave a space, and this is going to equal negative 1. The way we figure out what goes in these spaces is we need to get the middle term for each variable. We're going to divide it by 2. So first we're going to get 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then we're going to square it. This is going to give us 4. And this is what goes on this line, plus 4. And what we do to one side, we also do to the other. We're going to do the same thing with negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. And we're going to add 1 on the right side. Since all we're focused on here is the radius, all we need to focus on is the right side. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. Now, if you remember the equation of a circle, it's x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And that's what we have in this formula. That is going to be r squared. So we find that r squared equals 4. And if we take the square root of both sides, we're going to get that r equals 2, which will be answer choice A. First of all, I want to say thank you for making it to this point in the video. If you rewinded when you didn't understand, went through every single problem and tried it yourself, then this video will help you out tremendously. Your score may have raised between 50 and 100 points simply by watching this video and going through the problems with clear intentions on what you know, what you don't know. You have to be honest with yourself at the end of the day, because raising your score is the whole point of taking the SAT and practicing for it. If you like this video or learned something new, please make sure to smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel for more SAT content so that you can continue to raise your SAT score and excel in education. And I'll see you in the next one.